Now let's turn it back to our current mentor in courageous leadership, our high energy, fantastic leader of the University of Olivet, who really jumps into leading with both feet and chooses to get into situations that for most people could be really difficult or challenging or uncomfortable. And she's in there just ready to figure out with the people in the room, in the group, okay, how do we take this situation, empower everyone to move forward together? And I'm absolutely amazed at how KayDee does that. And so she's going to share some tips and tricks with us and some insights as well. KayDee, thank you for finding the time to be a part of our conversations today. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. And thank you for your contagious energy in putting this together. And thank you for the opportunity to share, hopefully, some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. And I'll be the first to admit I don't always get it right, but I do my best every day to put people first. And so I'm trying to get this over here so that way maybe I can see if somebody raises a hand or has something to say. I intend for this to be interactive, so if you have a cell phone or a tablet, have it ready because there are going to be some times to scan a QR code to participate. So I'll find out if there's actually humans behind these blocks on the screen. That'll be interesting to see who's really listening. I mean, if you want to give like an emoji right now, that'd be fun to see if you're really there. Oh, Brad's gonna like actually wave to me. Oh, maybe not. Hi, Brad. It's good to see you, Brad. I appreciate you, Brad. So yes, today I want to spend some time talking about balancing that empathy and accountability. And I think when we get it right, that is really when we get to the idea of excellence. As Dr. Corey mentioned, I am the provost at the University of Olivet. I did want to give you my email address because I am a highly collaborative person. I just came from the President's Leadership Institute, where we are working with students to help develop them into leaders. And we were reviewing the DISC survey. So if any of you are familiar with the DISC survey and the DISC analysis, I am an ID. So the I comes out really fluidly, frequently, a lot. And so I love to collaborate. I love to be with people. And so feel free to reach out to me. Following this, I would love to hear from you and work with you and just hear your ideas and your pain points and work through it. We do leadership best together and not on our own. So a little bit about me. The line, I am an educator and you can't take that out of me no matter how hard you try. I came out of the K-12 system. I started off in K-12. I was a high school math, middle school math teacher for nearly 10 years. Loved it, loved working with students, especially the ones who thought that they sucked at math and really wanted to teach them that really they just needed to be patient with themselves. And then they moved me to K-1-2 PE. I don't know if you've ever stereotyped those two teachers before, but they're not really the same. And after that 1 year in K-1-2 PE, a position opened up at what was then Olivet College. And I applied for it on a whim, not knowing if that would actually work out, and it did. And so I joined then Olivet College 13 years ago as an assistant professor in the Health and Human Performance Department. And just kept taking on different roles. Prior to joining Olivet and coming into higher ed, I was changing positions every 4 to 5 years. And so the idea that I've been at an institution for 13 commencements now is really a point of pride for me. I love our students and I love the work here, but I would also then share with you that my role has probably changed every 4 to 5 years since I've been here. And so most recently, I just started as provost here a couple months ago in July. Prior to that, I was the associate provost for student development, so oversaw really student affairs. But to give the first example about balancing this care and challenge, I'm going to give a student faculty situation. I had a student, high performing student. She actually ended up graduating top 5. But she came to my office at midterms. She was a student athlete and she was in season. She was extraordinarily frustrated, overwhelmed. I think the direct quote was, "KayDee, I'm quitting golf. I'm dropping out of school and I can't do it." Tears were flowing. We were raging upset and the world was ending. I don't know if any of you who are in higher ed have ever experienced a student at this. I see somebody from ITS on our call. I think you probably had kids probably show up ready to throw their computers out. The computer is broken, IT is terrible, computers never work, right? And like we go to this extreme, right? That everything is terrible. And I just looked at the student and I said, I believe in you too much to let you stop here, right? We're not going to stop here. And it was, what are we going to do next? What is the solution? I hear the challenge, but we're not going to stop here. And so we started going through, it was midterm week. We had a paper due. She had a paper due. She had a test coming up. And then she had other things that really weren't a priority that were in her way of progress. And so we had to work through those things, and then she had to determine what her priorities were. And by the time she left, she realized that it was actually a doable task. But stopping that narrative and working with her to say, I believe in you, and I believe in you too much to let you stop here. And so, having that courageous care, comfort and challenge in the same breath. I'm not going to do the work for the student. I was not going to take the test. I was not going to study for the student, but we could help put the plan in place. Now, having a student and doing a little bit more to support a student is a little different than when you get into an employee supervisor relationship. And so as a leader, I know that it's different. And so when I've transitioned into leadership, I totally hear you that maybe I'm not going to handhold as much. But I think that the sentiment can transition in the same way into the I care too much to lower the bar. The standard of excellence can't change, and I care too much about you to lower the bar of what we expect. In higher ed specifically, we care too much to lower the bar of excellence because we serve students, and our students deserve the best. And so the example I would share here is I had a colleague who had the most brilliant ideas for our students, ideas for programs, and wanted to really do what was best. And I noticed that at times it was had these great ideas, and then all of a sudden I would just notice that the programs weren't happening. These ideas for the programs just weren't coming to fruition. And so I could have let it slide, but eventually it got to the idea of your creativity is amazing. You're actually brilliant at what you want to do, but it's not serving the team if you don't follow through. And so at the end of the day, I need both from you. And so it was not an easy conversation. And those conversations of holding people accountable are never easy. But when you have them, it legitimately changes everything. Um, I struggle sometimes. I will tell you, I would ask anybody to throw any emoji up in their little black box of names right now of the anxiousness that you may have had anytime you've had to go into those conversations. Like I dwell on them for days, thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Like, what if they don't like me? Like, you want to be nice, right? It is never an easy conversation. I had one just the other day. There was an email chain that I got pulled into really late, but it was an email exchange between several colleagues. And I went back through and I read the chain of emails, and they dated back from as late as a few months ago. And I just read a different tone in the emails. And so I finally emailed my direct report and I said, I'm reading back through these emails and the tone is not holding the standard of collaboration and care. It's not ultimately creating the spirit of collaboration that's going to best serve our students here. And if we're trying to get prospective students to come here, if we're wanting to work together more to provide the programs that we want to provide, this isn't going to get that done. The email response from that colleague was, thank you, because there was no tone intended. And sometimes we just don't realize how we may be coming across to others. And so until we have somebody that says it out of care, because we know we expect more from one another, we don't know how we're coming across to others. And so because I cared enough to both affirm their talent and their intent, I was able to hold them accountable. And so just go back to that. I care too much to lower the bar. And I love that Kelly brought up Brene Brown because, yeah, it was already in here. She read my mind. Our team, the student development team, a couple of years ago, or maybe it was last year, I bought the Dare to Lead series or book for the team. And in there, she talks about clear is kind, unclear is unkind. And sometimes leaders, guilty, I'm not perfect at it. We avoid giving tough feedback because it's easier, right? It's easier just to be like, they didn't mean it. I'm going to let that one slide. And so we we avoid it, right? It's easier to avoid it. But in doing and avoiding that, we actually end up robbing our colleague of a chance to grow. And I think if we start realizing that we limit somebody's growth, we limit somebody's potential when we don't hold them accountable, when we're not kind to them by saying, you know what, I actually think you're capable. It's not kind, you know? And so when we think that we're actually being nice, we're not being kind. And so courageous care is clarity paired with empathy. And so it's both. Again, I'm just going to throw it out there. Not easy, not comfortable, um, but necessary. So I mentioned to you that I wanted you to have a phone out. So if you take your device and you pull up your camera on your device and you go up to that QR code, I know it's tiny on your phone or your computer screen, but your phone will pick it up. Or on the top left, you go to pollev.com/KD, just the letter KD Perry. You'll go to a poll everywhere thing, and I'll be patient. So you go, I'm scanning. That's why it's looking funny because I'm going to play too. And so it'll take you right to this black screen pop up. I don't know if you can see that. It's a black screen with a little white box. And it says, when you hear the courage to care, what word comes to mind? And you can put in more than one word, just put them in one at a time. So you put in one word, hit enter, and then you can put in another word. So if you're like, oh, I have like 3 words that come to mind, just put them in individually. So when you hear the term, the courage to care, which was the theme that I was supposed to present on today, what word comes to mind? I have to move my thing because my computer's in the way. Bravery, making things better. I do think there's an element of bravery in there, right? And especially, I think the first few times I did it, I felt really brave. Like I was like, whoa. Um, yeah, I think that's a really interesting word for me. Brave, bravery, that one came up a few times. I'm gonna let it sit and see if anybody else comes up with another word or words. And as a leader, having that clear and clarity came up, you have to know what you want, right? And so you can only hold people accountable if you know as a leader what you're wanting from people. And so those are important as well. Thank you. There's 2 more of these. They're different. We're not doing word clouds every time, but there's different ones. So a little bit of a word cloud or a Venn diagram. I said I was a math teacher, so Venn diagram is appropriate, right? So defining courageous leadership. Empathy and accountability gives us the courage to care. So on the left, we have the circle with the heart in it, right? Empathy. Recognizing the humans. I know that we live in a world that is wanting to go to AI and to chatbots and these amazing resources, and we're data driven, which is on the right side, right? We have this accountability, we can do that. But we also have to recognize that we have humans. We have employees and we have colleagues and we have students that deal with some real life things, and we have to make space for that. Life is going to life, and we don't get to stop it, no matter how much our priorities at work are important. Um, no matter how much we have to hit our demands at work. Um, we have spouses that are battling cancer. Um, we have new babies that are born, right? We have children that are graduating from high school, and we have children that are doing amazing things in sports and in academics, and we have celebrations to be had, and we have hard things to mourn and to get through, and those things are going to happen, and we have to prioritize them, and we also have to recognize that our colleagues are coming in with real life things, and we have to recognize that I appreciate the fact that my colleagues bring the best version of themselves to work that they can bring, recognizing that that best version is not always the best of themselves, because quite frankly, there's other things that might be going on. And then on the other side of this Venn diagram, we have this measuring stick, the accountability part, right? We have to get things done. We have to be productive. We have to meet goals, and we have deadlines to meet, and we have to be accountable, right? That was one of the things that was listed in the word cloud. And so, yet too much empathy and too much accountability, and we go too far one way, can get us out of whack. And so, what I'm suggesting is this courage to care is in this perfect middle, right? When I can balance that as a leader, when I can tell a colleague, bring your true self to work, and I will value that while also recognizing that we're going to get it done together, we're going to we're going to do amazing things. When we can pick up and fill in the gaps for one another, we're going to do amazing things. So, empathy and accountability, it's both, is the courage to care. So why does this balance matter? One, it builds trust and belonging. I know that if something's going on at home and somebody can really tell me what's going on, they trust me with it. And I can bring my authentic self to work. It builds belonging. One of the things I truly love about Olivet is we, as President Corey has said repeatedly, we define ourselves by who we include, not who we exclude. That is all about belonging at this place. And so if we say that it matters, then it needs to matter. When we do it right, it unlocks growth and potential. If I don't hold somebody accountable, it means I don't think that they're capable of better than what they're giving me. And so when I say I expect that the tone of the email embraces the spirit of collaboration, it means that I expect that we're going to be collaborative. When I ignore that the tone of the email is not embracing the spirit of collaboration, it means either I'm okay with us not collaborating, or I'm okay with us treating each other that way. And so we have to hold each other accountable. And then it strengthens excellence and resilience. Courageous care transforms both individuals and organizations. And so it's both at the individual level and it's at the organizational level. All right. So if you stayed logged into your phone, it should have just automatically sent you to the next thing. If you didn't, you can rescan the QR code, like if it shut off, but mine just moved to the next one. So which do you find harder as a leader, empathy or accountability? Which one is more challenging for you to do? Somebody changed an answer. That's fun. I don't have it up, so I can't see how many people are participating in the game. accountability. Anybody else want to chime in? Neither. Awesome. Interesting. Thank you. All right, so we're going to get into practicing this and how do we do it a little bit more in the day to day. So I think one of the things that I have tried to get better at, this is something in terms of those of us that struggle with the accountability piece, is recognizing the strengths in the moment is a little easier. I'm, again, going back to the DISC survey, I'm an IED, so I'm really good at this in the moment. The in the moment stuff, recognizing brilliance in the moment, this is my cup of tea. Recognize strengths, celebrate effort, connect brilliance to potential. Celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. Infuse the joy of the work as often as you can. Recognition as a foundation for growth. This fuels and motivates teams quicker than anything. You can do it as early as elementary school, right? If any of you have been in elementary school recently, they do these things called like star tickets or SOAR tickets or bucket tickets, because kids will do anything for like a golden ticket, right? Most colleagues will do anything for a little recognition, like hey, thank you so much for contributing to this project, or I noticed that you did, right? Recognizing strengths, celebrating effort, and then connecting somebody's brilliance to their potential is just in the moment, giving that authentic and specific. Be specific about it. And not generic, right? Not the minimalistic, not the, hey, thanks for showing up to work today, but thank you for being thorough on this report. It helped me as a leader accomplish this. Send it in an email, write it in a note, recognize it in a way that is authentic and clear. Acknowledge how it helped the team, because sometimes we just forget to do that. Again, it's foundational to the team and it motivates others when they start to see, oh, that's how you get recognized for the good. It will change your team dynamics as well. Expecting more in the next moment. Frame your feedback and believe that you expect more, right? Feedback, sometimes I think, we got caught up in this constructive feedback loop where I'm going to give you constructive feedback and you need to take it. But I also think that we can give constructive feedback in a way, it's because I actually believe you're capable of more. I'm going to give you constructive feedback because our team needs it from you in order for us to be successful. I want to give you this feedback because I believe you're capable of it. I am not giving you this feedback to set you up for failure. Accountability is me respecting you as an individual. If I did not hold you accountable to this, it would be disrespectful. Again, almost kind of back to that Brene Brown, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. If I was not holding you accountable, it was actually disrespectful to you. Because again, it means that I don't believe in you, right? And so keeping that in mind, there's a section in Brene Brown's book where I forget what company it was, where the president or VP was getting up and was actually delivering really bad news to the organization at an all company meeting. And the company clapped for the human. And when they got done, and I think it was Brene asked, like, why are you guys clapping for that? Like, that was really bad news. Like, why would you clap for that? And they said, we clap for truth. And it spoke to me, right? Like, you respect that. When we can speak truthful to one another, then we can push towards excellence. And so we have to build that as part of our culture. Accountability communicates belief in somebody's potential. And when we refuse to hold somebody accountable, we are then in fact communicating that we don't really believe in somebody. And so kind of keeping in mind, like, what are we not saying about somebody when we don't hold them accountable? Taking a deep breath, because sometimes I get going and I just need to pause. Okay. So how to balance care and accountability? First, listen. Um, I struggle with this because I get going 1,000 miles per hour. At a lean institution like the University of Olivet, we do not have a lot of people, and so we get pulled in a lot of directions. And so sometimes pausing and listening is hard to do. And so reminding yourselves and ourselves and myself, stop, listen. It's important. Affirm brilliance in real time. Again, recognize strengths. 3, set clear expectations. I cannot hold somebody accountable to something that I have not clarified first. Give feedback with empathy and model excellence. But what I want to be really clear about on these 5 things, these 5 things are not complicated systems. I'm not telling you anything that's super overly complicated. These are highly repeatable habits. As a leader, I first have to do these things. Before I can ask anybody else to do these things, I have to do them. And when I'm doing them and I'm modeling them, then my direct reports can model them, right? And when we start behaving in this way, we start to create a culture of care and concern and accountability for one another. And when we set clear expectations and we're giving feedback with empathy, there is a set of accountability within there, right? Because the expectation is clear and we're giving feedback with empathy. We are holding the line. But we're also affirming excellence and we're affirming brilliance in real time. So we are recognizing the greatness and the institution, right? We're not always just focused on the negative, right? But we're celebrating the real wins. And so we have to keep that balance. It's a constant balancing act. But as a leader, I have to listen first and always listen first. How can I help you? And I have to model the excellence as well. I cannot ask of others what I am not doing for myself. And again, I'm just going to reiterate this. These are not complicated systems. These are simple, repeatable habits that I have to do day in and day out and consistently for others. All right. So this is going to get touchy-feely for my people that I think it was one person who said empathy was the harder one. I'm sorry. This is going to be the challenge. One question for you. Think of somebody who showed you courageous care. What did they do? So what was a time when you experienced somebody who showed you courageous care? What did they do? And so in this block, you have a little bit more time to write. But I want you to share, what did they do for you in a way that showed you courageous care? So someone mentioned a handwritten thank you note. Those do go a long way. I think, such a pastime thing. I know when my kids get handwritten notes in the mail, like they light up like a Christmas tree, and it's amazing. Someone said straight talk. I think that is another lost art. I know I have colleagues that come to my office at times and they're like, "Can you just give it to me straight? Like, I need 30 seconds. Can you just give it to me?" And you're like, "Yes, okay." Um, yeah, they put their actions behind their words and keep a door that was potentially closing. Checking daily with true concern. Yeah. Specific feedback paired with an opportunity to try again in a low stakes way to build confidence. I was successful. It felt good. They celebrated the win. Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right, so then this is, my mom has this phrase, and my dad, this is one of those mom and dad both had the same phrase. And so you always felt very cornered in my household when you got it from both mom and dad. Like, usually, like, mom had her disciplinary ways and dad had his, but this was one where you heard the same thing from both of them. Don't point the finger at somebody else till you check the three pointing back at you. Like, that was the thing. So, as a leader, before we point the finger at somebody else, right? Um, who needs courageous care from you this week? So as we think about, and I look at who's in this room, and we all lead people, um, whether we're leading students or we're leading direct colleagues or we're indirectly leading people, or we lead homes, or we lead youth groups, or we lead, we're leading somebody, right? As we look at our leadership, when you think about who's in your circles, and I would even say sometimes in my view of leadership, leadership can go up. Um, Mentorship can go up, right? Like, I have been blessed enough to recognize and be told that sometimes when I was the mentee, my mentor got stuff from me at times. And so at times, like, does your mentor need courageous care from you? Can you be helpful? And so think around who's around you right now. Who needs courageous care from you this week? And I'm going to struggle at this moment. I'm going to try to be silent for a minute and a half. I'm going to set a timer. But who needs courageous care from you this week? And how can you offer it to them? How will you go about offering that to them? I'm really glad I set a timer because that was a long time sit silently on a Zoom call. Anybody willing to share? That's a really risky thing to do on a Zoom call. I know. Anybody willing to share? And you don't have to share who, but a way that you're willing to meet somebody with courageous care this week, a strategy. You can put it in chat too, if you want.
KayDee, I don't mind sharing.
Oh, thank you.
I have been speaking to someone that's going through a very difficult and stressful time. And I find that caring is just being available to them when they need to talk, not pushing them aside for later, but just being available even when I'm busy, and say, well, and say, well, this is a good conversation. Let's pick it up later. Also, just being very supportive of them, and also being willing to share my thoughts when I think they need to hear a different side of a situation. Just being willing and open to sharing that in a way that's not going to crush them or hurt them. So I would just say being supportive, listening, being available, and not being afraid to have some genuine, authentic conversations with them.
Yeah, giving a counter example, right? Or giving an alternative perspective to a situation.
Yes.
That's awesome. Thank you. I did have 3 breakout questions. Kelly, how am I doing on time? I have no idea. I've lost track. Anybody?
You've got about 8 minutes, KayDee.
Okay. So we can play the game if anybody wants to chime in. So 3 questions. The first question is how do you practice empathy as a leader? How do you practice empathy as a leader? I think this is hard, right? Because it's, that it's the heart. And Linda, you gave a beautiful example right now of, making sure we carve out time for people, especially when we know they're going through it. And life is life-ing right now, right? I know we have some colleagues that are really going through some things. And so creating space for them to share life, I think is important. And so I think Linda gave a beautiful example. Does anybody else have an example of how you practice empathy as a leader? I know somebody mentioned that they struggle with empathy. I'm a hugger. I'll throw it out there. That's how I show empathy. I hug you. It's Brad's favorite.
That was very funny. I like the hugs. I really feel kind of at like twisted up a little bit with this entire right, because I think what I'm held up with is showing so much darn empathy that often for me it becomes like, oh, I'm the rescuer, so you know me, I'll just do the whole thing. Give it to right. And so right, I'm kind of sitting here going, ugh, locked up. I'm like, all right, well, this is my growth. This is growth for me. So
yeah, and I think that's it, right? It's yes, you can come at it, but if you're doing it for them, you're removing their opportunity for growth, right? And you're removing if you start doing it for them, you're reducing your belief in them, right? And let's go back to the student example I gave at the beginning. If I would have told the student, you don't have to take the test, it's fine, right? Does that student necessarily believe that they could have done it? No, right? Like if you help them write the paper, does it prove to the student that they can do it? No. Like you can't do the work for them. You can't change the task. It doesn't prove to them that they are capable, right? You have to give them that opportunity. They still have to be held accountable to the expectation. And empathy does not mean do it for them, right? But you have to also hold the belief of, I believe in you so much that you can do it. Right?
Or sometimes, like to that point, I'll just say to someone, "You got this," and then I walk away, and I know like I'm twisted up inside because of like holding that anxiety of,
Mm,
"We totally got this." Would you just walk away and allow it to happen, however it's supposed to happen? But
mm,
often it's that, and sometimes that's where my sleepless nights come in.
mm.
Like whether it's my students or whoever it ends up being, but.
Well, I think at times, you know, is it that we feel that we are truly setting them up for success? Or are we setting them up for failure?
Right, yeah, like, is this too much? Or right, like,
You know, and I think as a leader, if we're setting a clear expectation and we truly think the person is capable, that is different than setting a student up and being like, yeah, here's the project. I think you're going to fail. Peace out. Right? That feels icky.
yes,
I think it does happen, right? But sometimes did students put in the work along the way,
right, right,
right? But there's an accountability piece there too, right? You have to hold them accountable. And students need to put in the work.
Mm.
They can't get a grade, you can't get an outcome that you don't earn. But as a leader, if I see early marks that a colleague is struggling, how do I come alongside and put in the building blocks? Now, if I see that I'm putting in the building blocks and we're still not getting there, now I have a decision to make as a leader and a manager, right? Now this is going to get to the ugly truth, right? Is this not a good fit for the role? Right? If I'm putting in all of the building blocks and providing all of the support and doing all of the things, this might not just be a right fit. That's a different conversation.
right. Well, and I love that, and it was when you said coming alongside, because I think that's in the space I'm currently at, is how even whether it's my students, my colleagues, or whatever group, right? It's how am I coming alongside? And my feedback needs to come sooner and instantly. So it really can't wait midterm. That's way too late. So I've really been practicing, specifically now, is giving that feedback in the moment, knowing my students so that I can give the feedback, really tracking who's here and who's not here, and which is a lot when there's so many students. So but I feel like, my locked up is all of that really matters to me, because the people matter. And
Mhm.
I think, that's what you're saying, and it's a lot of work. I mean, I literally have a lot of tension from it, but
Well, and it's hard too when you're thrown into it. You get locked up too when you're like, okay, I know what I really want the goal to be, right? If you don't feel like all of the students have been set up for success in that long-term goal, right? And you're like trying to play catch up to a long-term goal, how do we recalibrate in that moment?
Right.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's a
Yeah,
different beast a little bit, but
yeah. Thank you. I so appreciate all of that. Thanks,
yeah.
Katie.
So a second question, where do you, and this, Joylyn, you jumped in there. I'm sorry, I have 1 minute. Okay, we're not gonna play that question. What would courageous care look like in your team? Anybody want to stab at that one? Callie, you want to stab at that one? I'm just gonna throw you right in there. Callie, final thought.
Final
Courageous
thought.
care.
Courageous care for our team, I believe, is stepping alongside someone and just saying, what can I take from your load, or how can we swap? How can we work together to make this manageable for all of us? And just really kind of put down on the table, okay, what are we bringing that we can offer to make this all manageable for everyone? I think just being really authentic with knowing that we're in a hard place, and figuring out what resources people can bring and are willing to share to help us move through it together.
Mhm. Yep. So, Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for allowing me to share some thoughts.
KayDee, thank you for facilitating a great conversation about a topic that is so important in every area of our life. And from the minute we wake up in the morning till the time we go to bed, and when we wake up in the middle of the night and there are things spinning in our heads, it's a topic that we need to just really take to heart and consider how do we find that balance. And you're so authentic with the conversation. I think it really helps people to be able to process well. So thank you for that.
My final thought would be, how many people have seen the movie We Bought a Zoo?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so in the movie, they buy this zoo, right? The husband had lost his wife and he has some kids, and they buy this zoo on a whim. And they have this thing about, like, would you pick animals or humans? And at the end, the children are struggling with this entire idea. And at the end, the one child goes, I have the answer. I choose humans. And I would just say, I do too. Humans every day of the week. I pick humans. So humans
Awesome.
every time.
That's a fun way to wrap up, and an interesting question to ponder as well. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for participating. We are going to move right into our next presentation, but I'm going to stop the recording and restart it. So KayDee, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and invite you off as the spotlight and invite Joylyn on. There we go. And give me 1 second to stop and start.